We are going to be speaking today about how we bring good men back into society. I'm Ansary. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your supportive emails. Travis, Eric, others. It's November 14th, 2023. Get ready for a brand new outside-the-box perspective that you're not going to hear from the dominant left and the dominant right. Because you see, I actually come from, even though my history on my father's side has been hidden from me as I do my digging, there is a long line of poets, of mystics, of scholars, of true believers in God, non-radical extremists, but true believers in God, and people like my father's father that were educated in England. And as I do my studies on my father's Facebook page, I learn a lot about his ancestry that he will not, in fact, teach to me. But that aside, right? I am going to use this knowledge within me to help make the world a better place. I predicted 10 years ago when I made the MGTOW content, although I'm way outside the box of the limitations of that mindset, which at times leads into misogyny. I talked about good men leaving mainstream society based on not only my observations of the world, but my own personal lived experience. And so it isn't misogyny to say that there is a role for good men to play in this world as teachers of women. Okay, so men are not just meant to be human beings that procreate with modern humanoid females. And I use the word humanoid intentionally. It's almost as if we are some sort of a science experiment, not the true form in which we are, but we are what we are in the physical world because of deliberate genetic tampering. And it is of the demonic for people to fall into racial superior ideology, but also ideologies where they hate on certain groups. So I don't see any of the ethnicities as being superior or more resistant to mind control programming. In my experience and in my understanding, all the world's ethnicities are prone to this programming, especially when you put a so-called smartphone in their hands. All of a sudden, not so smart. All of a sudden, not so empathetic when you get them hooked on social media. So I repeat, there is a role that good men should be playing in the education of women. And what we have now with a dark feminine rising as a result of the bad men, but it's not really about men. It's about the evil of this world that has allowed bad men to take control over religions, to take control over kingdoms, to take control over governments. And sometimes they use white men. And sometimes people think then, oh, so white people are of the devil? No, maybe that's what the devil wants you to think. As they put certain white men in power, as they oppress the other white men that are not dominator destroyers. Same thing with the Afghans, same thing with the Arabs, same thing with blacks. Right? As they promote gangster rap in the 1990s. Yes, let's put drugs and alcohol. Let's give the Crips and the Bloods AK-47s. Thank you, CIA. Thank you, Rick Ross, Freeway Rick Ross. And then people then have harsh feelings towards blacks. People like Joe Biden changed the legal code so blacks caught with crack cocaine, which their government put into those black neighborhoods as they did redlining, where, oh, this is the black area. No soup for you. No money for you, but these white areas, yes, you get to be able to develop higher property values. They created the ghettos. And by the way, Malcolm X may have done some great things, but we don't really need to see content being pushed by the algorithm on Tubi and Amazon Prime that leads us into a mentality of only seeing historical people of color that called for racial segregation. Quite the opposite. I think that there needs to be true diversity of opinion in the alternative media without being dominated by this racist algorithm, which promotes fake news. But I'm already off topic, but you know what I mean. And a lot of people that say they're so for diversity Sometimes they're anti-white and they're not really for diversity. Sometimes they're about promoting certain people of color and then dominating the rest. Oh, you're white, you don't get a job. True diversity is not the diversity that you see represented by the controlled left. If you want to talk about true diversity, and we really need to just ditch that word then, so it's so co-opted, and talk about true equality, true fairness, true servitude to the true creator. In that world, everybody has a right to live. In another video, we'll do maybe a longer guided meditation on exiting the racial supremacy and racial hate program. Because you don't need to be a racial supremacist to be programmed with prejudice and discrimination towards certain people, i.e. anti-themism. You Google anti-themism, guess what man comes up? Yours truly, okay? And this is not the last that you've heard of anti-themism. You're seeing anti-themism right now with the people of Palestine. You're seeing anti-themism even pointed at the Jews. I can look at Twitter and it's promoting pro-Palestine, pro-Hamas, pro-Israel, literally at the same time. It's like, pick your Kool-Aid. But what has been done to both groups is wrong. And many have asked who are actually the real Jews. So, let me tell you now. There is a role that men have to play in society. Good men, good white men, good black men, good Afghans. But if you try to promote the goodness, you will be censored. If you go over to my Outside the Box TV with Alex Ansary Facebook page, please go over there, follow the link down below, like the page, and follow me on Facebook, okay? Screw my main profile. You want the official page. Okay, that's where a lot of content is going. And you can take a look at my grandfather, Saeed Amir Ansary, now that I have his name, the man that trained the Afghan army in the 1950s, the 1960s, in a period in time in Afghanistan where the women were free, not even wearing hijabs, and were involved in modern society. And you can find historical videos, by the way, on YouTube, thanks to PBS and other channels. And they will show you what the modern day conspiracy movement will not. So then I find out the name of another scholar who was involved with some United Nations folks. Even though there's a dark side to the UN, there is also some good aspects of the UN that now I understand. Now I understand why the entire conspiracy movement has been brainwashed into thinking that everything from the UN is of Satan. And so I have ancestors that were involved with the UN, Afghan representation at the UN in the 1930s, the 1940s, and the 1950s. And so when I post an image of this man, because there is this Farsi writing, Facebook won't let me post the image. But if you want to post about all these people being barbarians, being terrorists, oh, it'll let you do that. If you are someone that worked for the US government loyally, like my father, oh, you can post that on Facebook. But if you're an Alex Ansary who's pushing back against hate of those people, who's pushing back against war crimes, who's pushing back against the 9/11 deception, I don't get the same pass. In a recent video, we talked about Zoe Ansary. And so when you are unique genetically, and you're a good soul, and you try to expose the things going on, you will face opposition. Someone sent me an email who saw some of my recent videos offering to give me a voice in a book that will be featuring unheard voices on homelessness. And when you hear those voices of homelessness, it's often not going to be filled with people that are ethnic, because a lot of white people have been made homeless, as they give a lot of refugees more than they give white Americans, which isn't entirely right. Nor is it right for them to dump lots of refugees in parts of Europe where there's only 500 people there or 1,000 people there. And so if I was in control of immigration, which I'm not, which you're not, but if I was in control of immigration, I would allow people to escape areas that have been bombed back to the Stone Age. But I wouldn't, first of all, allow those areas to be bombed to begin with. And they would be put into places where they're more welcome. And there's plenty of space on this planet where people should be able to homestead, be off-grid, live off the earth, but not be in someone else's space. So I understand, although I don't agree with all the animosity, I understand why some people are angry and why the system is actually trying to cause people to rise up. And so there's a reason why, as a certain individual told me in Portland, Oregon, there are certain supremacists that are homeless, although many of them were that way before the refugee crisis. They were that way in the 90s and the 2000s. But some people have ended up radicalized because they are helping other people, not from here, more than their own people. And when you do that in America, it's a recipe for disaster. It's not good for the people that you're ignoring, and it's not good for the people that are the refugees that are going to be in dangerous situations. And some of them do not have an education. Many of them are suffering from Stockholm Syndrome. And so many of them don't have knowledge of the global government. And those that do speak of it, with only a few exceptions, their voice is going to be oppressed. But in my experience, someone who is an American, who is not a refugee, who does not receive refugee services, even if I've been looked down as a refugee, when I have found myself homeless, I never, ever, ever came across other ethnic people of my bloodline that were homeless. It was just whites and blacks. I really can't recall that many Hispanics, but I know there's got to be many Hispanic homeless people out there. They also have some of them have a very strong work ethic. And like I said, with whites, blacks, and Latinos, as opposed to Arabs and Afghans and East Indians, there's much greater racial unity. With East Indians, there's racial unity as long as you're East Indian. But you can't be partially East Indian. You can't get a pass. I can't get a pass for being partially East Indian, 1/4 East Indian. And so in my experience, when I was homeless in the past, it was incredibly uncomfortable, being that I didn't blend in with the others. So I avoided shelters unless I absolutely had to visit one, but it wasn't common. I prefer to live off-grid rather than be homeless in the city, which is why I went to Colorado and I live where I did live in Pagosa Springs. And I wanted to just be alone, even if I was surrounded by gunfire, in a part of North America that a lot of people would not move in, especially if they're pushing back against the far right and the far left talking points and just being themselves. In a world that says, just be yourself, just be yourself. When you just be yourself out in the open, in some periods in time, being yourself can actually attract the wrong crowd. So you've got to actually be careful who you truly be yourself with. Good men that have been forced out of society should know when it's time to come back into mainstream society, whether it means leaving the off-grid way of life and coming back into the grid to use, say, a power grid all day long because solar power off the grid and generators just doesn't cut it, to maybe able to create a book or a zine. For those that don't know what a zine is, it's a paperback book that is cheaply printed. Activists have used the zines for years to push back against Western imperialism. And I'm not a mainstream leftist by using that term, but it is appropriate. So are some terms that are used by the right. So even though I'm not left or right, there are some terms that are used by people on the left and the right, which a moderate can also use. It's also important for us to avoid using co-opted language like New World Order or social justice warrior and come up with new terms and definitions that basically express the same idea or concept. We should attempt to dumb down our language to a certain degree to reach some people, but we shouldn't do so extremely to the point where we are not displaying how intelligent we actually are. So if you have an advanced intelligence, or if you're finding yourself more intelligent than you were 6 months ago, as I am, and healthier than you were 6 months ago, or a year ago, or 2 years ago, in which I lost the will to live temporarily, as I have now retained my spiritual connection with the Almighty Creator, I now don't suffer from the same fears that I used to. That doesn't mean that I don't take certain precautions or have certain concerns, but there's a difference between that and just being scared of your own shadow. And there's a lot of people out here in this world, in this society, that are not truly being genocided, that are not truly being targeted. They have plenty of leeway and elbow room to make the world a better place. A lot of these women, white women, ethnic women, black women, they have priority status on the algorithm. They could be doing a lot more to wake people up to the plight that mankind, womankind is in. Because when you look at us as souls, not to push a androgynous agenda, but I'm just speaking from the heart, we may be more than, say, our gender. This gender identity, this racial identity, this cultural identity, this religious identity, this whole classism identity, whether you have a degree or not, let's talk about that. These are things of the material world. When you get into the world of spirit, we are beyond that. We are outside the box. Now, when we look at higher education, as wonderful as that can be, as much as many people associate their degree with their perceived sense of value, like my father getting in my face at the age of 16 when I'm hitting the bag. Anybody can be Rambo. It takes a real man to get an education. Well, a lot of these people that have been educated by the West have unfortunately been pulled into partisan politics. So then when they vote for Joe Biden, just because they didn't like Donald Trump, they find themselves appalled at what Joe Biden did with the way they pulled out of Afghanistan, saying to themselves on Facebook, I can't believe I voted for Joe Biden. Look at what this man has done. And I'm thinking to myself, I literally sent my dad a message. You have a master's degree. And you thought that Joe Biden, who was already part of the war machine when Obama was the president, were you not paying attention? He didn't like that and turned it around. And there's more I can say about that, but we'll save it for another time. There are many people that are educated that have in reality been indoctrinated. That means plenty of human beings that have the privilege. Don't be scared by the word privilege. It's not just white privilege we're talking about. There is such a thing as immigrant privilege also for those that immigrated like my father in the 70s and 80s into counterculture Portland. I know you love me pulling out this book. Like in every video now, Ansary had extreme privilege when he immigrated. He immigrated from Afghanistan and he is loved by tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of white Americans. Try being loved by that many and exposed to global elite while also being ethnic. It's like another version of Driving While Black. So you can be educated at Portland State University, Harvard, Yale, where you have the Skull and Bone Society, and really you can be indoctrinated into Satan's kingdom without even being conscious of the fact. And so they may think that they're a good man, a high value man, when in reality they are brainwashed into serving the system, all for trinkets and baubles and money. Got to make that money, baby. More, more, more. How do you like it? How do you like it? More, more, more. And they could become very much removed from their ancestors' indigenous ways, even if they praise their ancestors and they play the music of their ancestors and they read and translate the word of their ancestors. They may still, in fact, be indoctrinated in serving the very same beast system that is destroying the land of their ancestors and be so indoctrinated by what they think is higher education that they can't even see the error of their ways. So I hope to get more involved in writing in the near future, and I want to expand upon what a good man would do. So I'll be working on that and working to be the best man that I can be with the knowledge that I have within me without holding it in. Okay, so we need to reform, and I'll expand on this in future videos. I'm just going to give you some cliff notes. Modern medicine. Prison reform. Do not confuse what I'm saying with what is necessarily being promoted by the left as they let out hardcore criminals out of jail. Okay. But if we're going to talk about criminal justice system, the court system, and the police system, so we'll focus there. And public education, so we have 5 categories here. Higher education, also school system for kids, public school. They all need to be reformed. And so a lot of the people that you hear talking about reform, a lot of times they're just positioning themselves to line their own pockets, also known as the homeless industrial complex. So we also have to reform the way in which they help the homeless, which also 7, right? 7. The 7th option is the reforming of the land use codes in America so that people can live off the grid without a septic system, so that they don't need to spend a lot of money for building permits. I understand the purpose of building permits, so do you, but there needs to be balance in the force, Luke. Balance in the force so the dark side does not take over. The dark side that says that you must have $50,000, $100,000, $200,000, $500,000. You must have sold your soul to the devil of this world in order to have the money, honey. Gotta make that money, honey. I like big cash and I really can't lie. You others can't deny. And so we have this literally this worship of money from people that act like they're worshiping Allah, God, Jesus, Buddha. Reforming of the modern, let's see if I can remember what I just spit it out here in this free flow. But I got notes. Things that I wrote down months ago. Even before the situation in Gaza, I'm like, something doesn't feel right. I'm sensing anti-Semitism. I'm seeing David Icke foam at the mouth, coordination with Nick Fuentes, foaming at the mouth. Round up those protesters in France. Round them up and kick them out, along with other people. And before it's news, what's happening in France is totally going to happen in America with Muslim immigrants. Watch out. And just going, they seem to be almost channeling the same demon, prepping people for the false flags. Although you won't see David Icke come out and go, problem, reaction, solution. In many ways, David Icke is on board the agenda, although he doesn't appear conscious of it. I don't think that he's conscious of it. I think that he truly thinks that he is real love and light. In a lot of ways, a lot of these people act like they're exposing the dark side of the New Age movement, but being a part of it. So let's summarize some ideas. Modern medicine needs to be reformed, and this is what a good man would do in society. And so again, I'm going to say this, then talk about a few things. Because of the actions of some of the unconscious men, again, that have been placed by the devil of this world into power over government, power over religion, power over media, power over banking, power over science, and on down the categories we go. You see? And so because of the unconscious actions of some men of various ethnicities, many of the unconscious women, because they're human, not because they're women, because they're human, and humans, men and women and men are under, by and large, mind control, including many men. I'm not a fan of many men. Yes, there's more men than women. There's hardly any women that comment on this work, right? And that will be exposed, okay? I don't need a bunch of unconscious women latching on my channel, wishing the old, stoned, weak Alex Ansary was around so they can walk on him. A lot of women are not going to want or hear from a good man like me who's going to call out the evil of this world because they have not yet purified themselves of that darkness and stepped away from false truthers that oftentimes push hate over true love and light. True love and light and true servitude to Christ, not just saying in Jesus' name, tap your heels 3 times and think then you're holy. Put your money where your mouth is and show me how holy you are. Man, woman, woman, man, man, woman, woman, man. And notice in my language, in my speech patterns, I always say man, woman, then woman, man, then man, woman. So you understand that I'm talking about the modern day human being of all races is under this influence. And I'm here as a messenger of God to slice through with the flaming sword, Satan's kingdom. And my war against this entity in control of these humans is not going to end after I am dead, if I have anything to say about it. If my desires can actually manifest, I don't want a mansion. I don't want a bunch of wives or beautiful women. I don't want a bunch of money. I don't want war or worldwide fame. I want to morph into a much more powerful form to be able to take on this true draconian system. And in my opinion, some of you should want that as well. I'd rather have that than to be in supposed paradise, doing MDMA all day long. I want to be able to be very effective. And so, Aaron in Portland has a lot of insight on the dark feminine and how a lot of the women in Portland, for example, have this attitude that men are a part of the natural evil, that they are naturally evil, like an original sin. And this is why you see the gender and racial supremacy ideology of some of these leftist women in some of these cities like Portland and others that are benefiting from the world that men made. Men built these cities. We built this city on rock and roll. We built this city. They're benefiting from the hard work of their fathers and grandfathers. And sometimes they forget about the good men, the good white men, the good black men, the good Arabic men, the good Afghans that came before them, because they are brainwashed towards hate of the good man by the evil of this world that wants to oppress them and be their new daddy. And so a big gateway to being connected by this entity is the many women that are in the welfare state. And so when I think about the welfare state, let's just get this straight. We are not just talking about people that take welfare from the government, that get child support, that get credits for having a child, whether it be during COVID or in Australia. And if you know more about this, feel free to email me or leave a comment at Substack. They're censoring comments on my YouTube. Maybe later I'll come up with a forum. If you know of a great forum that's not Discord or Telegram, that's not co-opted by a lot of bad people that are on those servers doing bad things, and you're aware of some free forums in which it's easy to moderate, like an old school forum, let me know via email and I'll consider it. So you don't have to be reliant on, listen, we're not going to be obsessed on tons of comments on YouTube or Substack, because these platforms are co-opted. We will think outside the box of the AI program. And so when I talk to you about the welfare state, I'm talking to you also about those women and men that are corded up with these multinational corporations, that because they served in the military, they get a check. They get a check every month. And by the way, ask yourself, how is it that so many people that get checks from the government every month, although not all, apparently, why are so many vets homeless? And why would so many vets that end up homeless still have a servitude to the government and believe what the government has told them, either about migrants, immigrants, or 9/11? When the government abuses them at the VA, messes up their mind with bad drugs, when really they need God and MDMA and cannabis, right? And I'm not going to be afraid to say it. Mushrooms, not so much. Not so much. Only in the hands of someone that has a shamanistic inclination, whose ancestors have used, like Hector Combos, that have used mushrooms in the past. Then it's different. So you have women that are actually part of the welfare state that work in social services, like one woman who I used to have a crush on for years, who said on her page, housing is a human right. Housing is healthcare. Oh, we're so loving and conscious. We're not with him. We're not with him. Where was she when I needed someone to give me a place to park so I can use the toilet, so that I can use the shower? Because that's a nightmare when you're homeless, especially if you don't have a car. But when you park from place to place in front of people's houses and you can't even use a toilet, and you're literally running to Laurelhurst Park because you got a you-know-what number 2, and the door is locked. Thankfully, in my situation, in that 1 year in which I was in Portland, Oregon, without a home, I didn't have any major accidents. I was lucky enough to find a restroom and to know when I had to go. A lot of humans sometimes don't have that option. So they end up, unfortunately, crapping in the streets of California. And then a YouTuber comes along. Oh, look at this. Poop on the sidewalk. Homeless to hate. Let's exploit them in their lowest moments. Let's take pictures of it and put it on the community tab of our YouTube channel and get 100 likes and make money off the fact that we're poking the stick at a human that's now been degraded at the level of an animal. And that is straight up satanic. And yet people will lap that up, literally liking a picture of poop on the sidewalk, giving that more attention instead of go, what about the soul inside this human being that is being dehumanized? So again, in a future video, I'll expose the criminality of the people that invaded Portland, Oregon and are harming people in Portland, Oregon that are homeless, but also talk about the good homeless that don't deserve to be judged because of the actions of some drug addicts. Because you can't look at any race or religion or culture and say it's all good or it's all bad. You have a mix, just like with each and every individual, male or female. So you can take a woman, for example, like this one, who never once helped me when I was homeless, who defriended me on Facebook just because I was criticizing Facebook. Like a lot of Portlanders, they heard my criticism of the narcissistic attitude that if you come to Portland and you live in Portland, you're more conscious and you're more awake and you have a higher value. And a lot of people viewed me, by the way, and will view me as higher value if I am to be a Portlander or live in Portland, Oregon. And I'm here to tell you that is psychosis. I do not have to be literally walking on Portland soil to be a higher value man. In fact, I'm actually going to be in my greater strength and power by not breathing the Portland air, by not walking on the Portland soil. If I was to be in Portland now, I would be drawn to abusing cannabis, abusing alcohol, going to strip clubs, chasing women, because Portland has a very, very high concentration of beautiful women. Whereas where I am now, in this part of North America, the women are obese, the women are disgusting, they're typically not of my ethnicity. The white people that are here tend to stick with themselves and don't commingle with other ethnicities, be they Black, Latino, or Middle Eastern. This is something that I witnessed at some of local churches. So there's a lot of what we would call racial segregation going on here. You can literally be in an area where there's hardly any whites and go to a church and it's all whites. I'm here to tell you, and don't be offended, I don't feel that they would be relaxed if I was to walk in. I still deal with odd looks at the coffee shops. I go to coffee shops every day now. And sometimes people look straight at me. And yes, some people say that it's just my energy field. And I get looks from a lot of Black people. And I'm here to tell you, I'm honored that Eli Ritchie is watching my content. There's far more people of color of that ethnicity that are watching my content than of my father's ethnicity, but very, very few. There's a few people that follow my content. But because I talk about how all the different racial groups are being programmed, not just Trump supporters or white people, they don't really have much to contribute in the comments section. Okay, but if I was to get on board this mentality of it's just white people and it's just this, then I could have a massive channel with lots of followings and lots of donations. But because I don't see one group as more superior than the other or political party, and I call everybody out, including my father's family, I'm only going to be left with a very, very narrow, limited amount of people with the eyes to see, ears to hear, and heart to even understand the words that are coming out of my mouth. So again, even though I could dumb this down for the unwashed masses, excuse the language, right? But it is what it is, whose minds are polluted by Dabu 7, Alex Jones, Richie from Boston, and a long, long list of others. A lot of people are going to be turned off by the new, more powerful, higher prana, Alex S. Ansary. So this woman who says that housing is a human right, getting back to that, went to PSU with the help of her boyfriend, who called me David Koresh for simply calling out the things that I was talking about and saying that we need to get prepared. All of a sudden, now I'm on par with David Koresh, who isn't exactly an angel. Although what was did to him in Waco was wrong, we know that, but he wasn't necessarily completely pure. And so these are the stereotypes that people have. She's also connected in with the welfare state as she sits there and, probably sits there wherever she works in the county in Oregon. Oh, okay. What's your name? Okay. What's your SS number? Yeah, your SS number, your social security number, and your address. Okay. You have any kids? Okay. You have any education? And they just enter in that data. And so there's a lot of women out there that are part of the welfare state that are working in social services, and they're not even making the decision from the mother government, the eye at the top of the pyramid, just an eye in the sky, looking at you, I can read your mind. Making $100,000 a year. And by the way, during COVID, they said that 100% of the job losses were women. And to complete that point and to complete that thought, I'm here to tell you that in no way can that be the effing truth. You don't believe that, do you? You don't really believe that the only people that they laid off during certain months during COVID were women. And yet they're going to say this to us in the mainstream media. They're going to say this to us on NPR. Oh, so loving NPR. Oh, Donald Trump is the devil. Not that he's my buddy. Oh, but Donald Trump is the devil. But we're NPR. We're so loving. Here, let's play some ethnic music and go boom, 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 boom. It's fresh air. Boom, 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 boom. It's fresh air. No, it's toxic. It's rancid. Give me a gas mask. So the women make so much less than men. Which men are you talking about? Donald friggin' Trump? Epstein? Andrew Tate? Alex Jones? Which men do you speak of? Because in reality, right, there's a lot of women that are making way more than men. And because I'm not welcome in a lot of workplaces, and it's not just this. It's not just this, the soul, auric field, and ethnicity, and soul voltage. To coin a term from Maurice Cotterell, check out his work as well. Check out Maurice Cotterell's work on the solar cycles, right? I drop names like a mofo when it comes to various intelligent geniuses that have contributed so much to our world. It's not just this and this. It's my history on cable access TV. It's my history on YouTube. It's my history and activity on Twitter and Facebook. It's the people that I stand up for. I am the #1 Afghani truther on planet Earth, and there is no other. I am the undisputed title belt holder. I remain unchallenged in the ring as the only man of my bloodline, and I am proud of it. For the first time in my life, I am proud to be the only man in a planet of 8 billion, and I don't care if my pranic fire, is so intense that it engulfs an entire room at Starbucks, and I get looks. If it's too hot in the kitchen, get out! As my grandma Ruth said to my grandpa so many times he eventually left her ass, get out! Love you, Grandma. But I remember those shrieks. Get out! If it's too hot in the kitchen and you can't handle the key, you can't handle a good man, you can't handle a strong man, get out. Unsubscribe now in the name of Jesus Christ. So people can go ahead and unsubscribe to me when I take off the gloves and I tell it like it is. Good. They're not worthy of my teachings, nor are those who used to donate to me back in the day. Oh, I love it, Alex. Love it, Alex. Oh my God, what's that about the solar flares? Oh my God. Oh my God, you believe in that stuff? I don't believe that magnetic fields exist, even though they've done scientific studies at MIT that have proven that the human brain does detect changes in the magnetic field, whether it's unnatural magnetic fields like 5G, mind-controlled directed energy weapons, or whether it's the sun, or whether it's the moon. They want to act like this stuff doesn't exist. And that people like me that have an outside-the-box intelligence that's not just into conspiracy trash, that I'm inferior? No. Some of them intellectually are inferior, especially those that lean into supremacy ideology and anti-themism. They are the ones that are truly inferior. They are the ones that are truly making good white people, good black people, good Middle Eastern people, good Latinos, and I apologize if I'm leaving out any ethnic group. I'm just trying to generalize, and Asians. Because good men and women of the various ethnicities are suffering because of the bad men and women in charge and control. And so when we look at the racial demographics of some of these men that are making apparently so much more money than women, it's typically certain types of men. And again, you can't find those men exposing the system. Okay, so other men like myself that have had difficulty working out of jobs, even though I have been a hard worker when I bust tables, working in some cases faster at changing that linen tablecloth at Ruth Chris Steakhouse. Okay, next customer, next ass in the street. Let's go. Here's your water. Oh, let me hide my sweat. Yes, master. Yes, master. Yes, master. I know how hard I've worked for years and how in the real world, in the real corrupt world of bad men and women ruling over the rest of us, the harder you work, the more willing you're willing to bend over backwards for your master, for your employer. The more willing you're willing to do that is the more willing some of them are to use you and abuse you and throw you away just because they can. And a lot of them may not be conscious up in their head At the front of their cerebral cortex, a lot of it will be that reptilian brain. Oh yeah, be my bitch. Next, expect somebody to do karaoke to Britney Spears. Hit me, baby, one more time. But you have hypocrisy. You have other people that may not work as hard, but because they have a more attractive body, because they don't speak out against the system, they end up getting promoted, whereas their competency is actually less. Let me tell you some more stories. So I was working at Pagosa Brewing. Yeah, Tony's place in Pagosa Springs, Colorado, right? Also worked at the Milk Shop. Also worked at Rosie's Pizzeria, right? Also worked at Coyote Grill. Where else? And the Vietnamese woman's restaurant, right? Worked at 5 restaurants in Pagosa. Anyway, at Pagosa Brewing, I was running food. As I told you, I have strong shoulders so I can balance a tray full of heavy plates over my head and glide out. People thought I was Superman, like, dude, what the hell? Whew. Boom, boom, boom. Here's your food. And then back. And who do they pair me with? Some 16-year-old girl who's experiencing a rush of hormones, and she's reading a book, and it's called 50 Shades of Grey. And then I go to the manager, go, if you're going to let her read that book, I didn't specify the content of that book, but I said, if you're going to let her read that book, can I be on the internet and post news articles? And she said no. But it was okay for that young teenage girl to read a pornographic book, but I can't use a computer to say post news on Facebook. And when I was using my computer, you know the jokes some of the workers would make? They would make jokes about me watching pornography. Jokes that maybe I'm watching pornography because I'm a male. And I remember one time closing my computer really quickly when the wife of Tony walked by. And I'm doing it because I don't want to look like I'm a junkie, you know, like addicted to the internet, which I am and was, which is why I try to take days off the internet. And then the way she looked at me was, oh shit, she probably thinks I was looking at adult content. And I just remember like really being horrified by that. And just to remind you, right, I did walk off the job when one of their cooks got in my face because we had a difference of opinion on whether or not the computer screen was accurately spitting out the work orders, the food orders. The grid went down, the power grid went down during, by the way, a geomagnetic storm. And when it came back, it had been repeating old food orders. So they were making, in my understanding, food that had already been cooked. And I was trying to tell this cook, I think that you are remaking food that was already made. And he had a different opinion. Maybe he was right, maybe I was right. We never really found out. But he literally crossed around the food counter and got in my face, like right there, little guy, right? Just like Jacob Butler got in my face in New Mexico and instigated something with me and lied about it. So here I am in this situation where I'm working and a manager, a small stature manager, is up in my face. And so if you appear weak, if you appear like a nice guy, bad men and women that are in positions of authority, they will walk over you. So this whole mythos about people not wanting to work isn't fully true. Not only are some people rejected for employment because they don't fit into the certain expectations of certain workplaces, some people don't want to work for people that are going to abuse them. I don't want to work at fast food. I don't want to work at McDonald's. I don't want to work at Target. I don't want to work at Walmart. I'm pushing 44. You think my back is in condition, even though I'm strong up here? You think that I can just do this all day long with crates, working at a factory or a warehouse? No, this is my work. This is my job. And I'm stepping into my true self. I'm engaging in true soul retrieval in a lifetime in which I felt that my soul was damaged from the events that happened to me, not only in Costa County and that whole RV experience and Portland, Oregon, being homeless there, but also in Archuleta County, and then feeling that I had to leave, and then going to a shelter, and then being looked at the Durango Sports Club when I changed and showed my hairy chest. Not like, hey, look at me, I'm just changing, and weird things were said about me, including by an old man that worked in the locker room area. So it's not that I don't want to work out, to move the conversation forward. I don't want to work out at gyms where there's a lot of bad energy. And it's been a long time since I felt comfortable working at today's gyms. But I have certain requirements. I want people to be cool at those gyms. There needs to be a punching bag. There needs to be a sauna. If you don't have a punching bag and a sauna, I'm not interested. So there are people out there that make bank, and in a way, they are on welfare themselves because they're not really doing manual work. They're shuffling paperwork. Oh, what's your name? Your number? Okay. You ever been in trouble with the law? Okay. What about this? What about that? And so in reality, there's also corporations that own certain apartment complexes that are making bank from deals they made with the government. So they may have certain housing made for those people, designated for those people that are homeless. They call it permanent housing. And yet they may engage in such extreme unconscious actions that homeless that are not necessarily the most deserving, and I'll articulate what I mean by that, end up with housing, whereas other homeless do not. Also, think about all those homeless that never got a stimulus check. You know, you have to do your taxes and have an address to get a stimulus check. So I had to do my taxes in order to get a stimulus check. There's plenty of homeless that didn't get a stimulus check. So if you don't have a place to get your mail, you can't get food stamps, you can't get a stimulus check, you can't apply for housing. If you don't have a phone to go with your address, you can't call these people back. And I think it was Eli before, I don't want to be offensive to him, but I've heard him be called a clout chaser, the man by the name of Veli Ray. I try to engage with Veli Ray in the comment section. He does speak in a way that seems to play up his "I'm a Portland native" status, and he does act in a way that seems that he is acting in a way to make people like if you're going to go feed the homeless, you don't necessarily go film every action and go, look at me, I'm feeding the homeless. Well, Veli Ray also demonizes the homeless too. Look at this, I'm from here, I can't believe this is happening. Here, homeless, here's some food. Look at these dirty homeless, I can't believe this is happening. Here, homeless, I'm your friend, here's some socks. And so people might see that and get drawn to that, but it's a combination of perceivingly helping the homeless and perceivably bullying the homeless. Whereas Eli Ritchie took a different path and did not go so viral and was very much suppressed by the algorithm. Eli Ritchie interviews a man over by Chinatown by the giant lion, tiger, dragon statues. Beautiful, beautiful Chinatown, which is now desecrated. And this man is screaming, and he's asking him why he's screaming. He's having a mental health crisis because he can't get his mail. And for those people that are on disability, they're on the streets, if you don't have mail, if you don't check in with the mother government, which really doesn't give a damn about the homeless, they can lose their benefits like that and lose their mind. And the current Social Security doesn't give a rat's you-know-what about those people. Oh, you didn't get your mail? No soup for you. What type of a system does that? So you have people in the so-called homeless industrial complex who don't really care about the homeless, who are not proponents of off-grid living, who think that it's a homeless solution to basically have the government and the taxpayers foot the bill for an apartment, which in some of these places is $1,000 a month, $1,500 a month, and upwards of $2,000 a month, whereas maybe other people that are working hard, that have jobs, end up homeless themselves because they have an income. So there's deeper concepts that come from this. The system tends to reward bad behavior. That includes the women of today's day and age. They reward bad men with love and carnal pleasures, while good men are ignored, slandered, and scorned, and discarded. Okay. You want to push back against racism towards all groups. You want to bring the people together in a true diverse way, not a controlled left diverse way, but a true gender, racial equality, cultural equality way, with the exception of those cultures that are barbaric towards women. But there's some positive aspects of those culture if you look hard enough. But you won't hear about that in the conspiracy theory movement. And so good behavior, good souls on this planet are punished, whether you call it Christian persecution or another form of persecution or Gnostic persecution. On that note, a lot of Gnostics out there have been radicalized. and are not serving the light. They're fronting, they're LARPing, some would say. They're not serving the true Christ. Because of the unconsciousness of many of the churches, they think that they can just call themselves Gnostic, and in a way, they are practicing do as thou wilt. By acting like you can still hate on certain humans, be greedy, be selfish. And so when I talk to some of these Gnostics and I try to instigate or initiate conversation, when I tell them aspects of my story, or if I try to interview Gnostics, anyone that knows about the Son, who preaches against hatred, who knows about the deeper teachings of Jesus, that can tell me the more Gnostic leanings of the teachings of Jesus that can be found in the New Testament Bible. So we can cite the Bible itself to the so-called Christians that are hateful. All of a sudden, it's crickets and grasshoppers. Not even Jeopardy-themed content. They're not even thinking. It's just crickets and grasshoppers. I'm sorry, what? I can't hear you. La, 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 la. Not going to talk to you, Alex Ansary. And they will just go blank. So let's bring it back. We're going to keep this video under 1 hour. And I want to get to writing. I told myself no videos for a week. But honestly, folks, I cannot suppress the energy that's coming out of me. So for those that want to see my words in a book, if you talk to me one-on-one, you can share some of my words that's available in the transcript on your website, because there's nothing that I'm saying that I'm ashamed of. And there's nothing that I'm saying that I'm ever going to knowingly, intentionally self-censor again. Unless, of course, we enter into some hardcore dark ages. But I'm here to invest in my soul. In a world that wants your soul, we need to invest in freeing our soul from the demiurge, Shaitan, the devil of this world. So even though I said I'm going to take a few days off, this message has got to come out. So I mentioned 7 factors to you. Modern medicine needs to be reformed. Modern day psychiatrists should not be allowed to, I believe, what is the term, 5150? They should not be allowed to 5150 people that they think and assume are a danger to themselves or others simply because they're crying and they're being emotional about some bad things that happened to them. There's also been some people of African-American heritage that have said that the problem with them not having a counselor of their own heritage is that they could be considered mentally ill for patting their weave, okay? But I will counter that and say that I'm not going to find somebody of my heritage, more than likely, in such industries or things of that nature. So while black people think that they need to have necessarily someone of their own ethnicity, sometimes when you do have someone of your own ethnicity or the religion of the people of your ancestors, you can also end up burned. There's plenty of decent white people out there that do have compassion for people of color. Not all of them, but some do. Okay. And so you don't want to trap yourself into a box of thinking that the people in your friendship group or your Facebook page or the people that you watch or the people that you get therapy from, if that's something that you're into, need to look like you. In some cases, right, you might need someone of a different ethnicity to show you something that the people in your family will not. I teach many of you many things that you will not learn from David Icke, Alex Jones, or the people in your family. Don't forget that. And many of you that are Caucasian and white have been some of my greatest friends and contributors as opposed to the people of my father's ethnicity. And oftentimes, in some circumstances, not all, people not of my ethnicity have been my greatest allies and friends. Whereas those of my ethnicity, in some cases, have been those that have judged me the greatest. Let's move this conversation forward. There should be consequences for psychiatrists that knowingly, willfully harm their patients, including up to deportation for those that deliberately and purposefully harm their patients and refuse to lower the dose of the drugs that ends up damaging their liver. So I know that's kind of harsh to say, but in this day and age in which deportation of some bad immigrants is talked about, you know, there are people out there that are put into certain positions of power and influence. Where is my pen? That act like they are of God and believe in God when they're serving Shaitan. Okay, so notice that we do see demonization of certain Muslims and immigrants, but there are certain Muslims and immigrants that seem to be placed by the devil of this world into certain influential positions of power that have maybe 3 jobs, 4 jobs, making $100,000 a year, $200,000 a year, upwards of $300,000 a year, and they actually have no compassion for their own kind. So there should be a mental health reform where there are consequences for those people that have abused the system. Okay, so we're going to come back to this. THC and CBD should be legalized. It should be available in vending machines around the world in every country. And people should be encouraged to take a combination of the 1-1 entourage effect, not to be confused with just CBD or just THC, but a combination of the THC and the CBD united as one. It helps the nervous system, it helps the immune system, and it brings down the paranoia and the PTSD. And a lot of people now have trauma from simply being alive in today's day and age. And trauma, unhealed, can lead towards racial supremacy ideology. And for most people, racists don't get better, they get worse. But if you've healed from your racism, please contact me and tell me your story. I would love to see those emails. I need to hear and see those emails. But if racists don't get better, they get worse, then let's not sugarcoat it. And some people may not actually be really racist, even if they've been led into the illusions of separation program. They may have just maybe dabbled in some bad content that's influenced their minds. But if someone's truly, truly racist in some cases, they wouldn't listen to certain people of color. But some racists will listen to certain people of color because they believe that they're there to spy on them and absorb their information, which they call the enemy. You don't have to have enemies in this world if you don't want to. So they may actually see some people as intellectually superior while they feel that they have the obligation to All-Father Odin or the devil of this world to suppress those that they believe they are meant to suppress. And if you think that Odin is of the light and that a lot of supremacists have it wrong, let me know after class why you feel that way and be as specific as you can. A 3 or 4 paragraph essay would do just fine. One word, one-liners. So we talked about reform of that. MDMA should be legalized. Mushroom use should only be used in controlled settings. We're going to go a little over an hour, but we're going to try to wrap it up. Criminal justice, policing, the court system, prisons. What else do we have on our list? Public school, higher education. We talked about reforming the mental health system. Then we have off-grid. So there should be a reform of the off-grid land use code system to allow people that are low income to live in nature. In modern day treatment centers, they put people into these sterile THX 1138. It's a movie from the 70s. Check it out. They put them in these sterile environments to take away their cigarettes. They encourage pharmaceuticals in some cases. And people are basically in urban environments where the drugs are literally being sold outside. I got clean of heroin in one of these exact environments near Old Town Chinatown in Portland, Oregon. And I knew then, as a young baby Alex Ansary philosopher, that was not the way. But the way is to have a deeper connection with the earth. So now I'm talking about drug and alcohol rehabilitation. Because the vast majority of people are going to be broke, and they're not going to be able to be a Sandra Bullock in the movie 28 Days, where they spend thousands of dollars and they basically go to a country club and maybe find a lover or a mate, go off in the wilderness, do the Humpty Dumpty dance, do the Humpty dance. You and me, baby, ain't nothing but mammals, so let's do it like they do it on Discovery Channel. Just like, wow, just wow. Let's reform modern music. All hail the 1970s and 80s. So, man and woman must heal the gender divide in their recovery from mental illness, drug addiction, racism, homelessness, classism. So more on this later. So we're touching upon these things. Off-grid, drug rehab, mental health. In drug rehab, there should be a promotion of other spiritual ideas other than the 12 steps. 12 steps can turn into a cult for some people, but some people with a spiritual gnosis can use the 12 steps to evolve themselves. But a lot of people in the 12 steps become addicted to these meetings, and they become ideologically fixated on Bill W.'s experience, basically putting one man who wrote one book above God, and then telling themselves that they're powerless, when in fact the opposite is true. When I got off that stuff, by the way, is when I got away from the 12 steps and I got into public speaking, right? So for those that know my story, that are long-term viewers, right, you know my story. Some of you are new and you don't know my story, and you could benefit from learning from me. Nicotine and caffeine abuse and refined sugar abuse and fast food abuse should be discouraged when one is getting off drugs and alcohol. Okay, so let's move on to prison reform and then work our way from there. Men and women should not be put into controlled environments where they're taken away from the healing power of the sun. They should be given organic, nutritious food. They should be receiving various forms of spiritual counseling. Okay, not just the Bible, but also Sufism and mysticism. I'm not a big fan of New Age. There should be Qigong classes. In India, they did an experiment where they had the prisoners that were involved in rioting do a meditation, which I've talked to you about many times before, called Vipassana. It's an observation of your breath in and out through the nose, in and out through the nose, in and out through the nose. And practice a equanimous, non-reactive demeanor. So instead of itching and moving every few minutes in the lotus position, I can't sit in the lotus position for long periods of time. In my homelessness epidemic spiritual warfare video, I sat in the lotus position and I paid the price. My back paid the price that day for that video that I recorded at the park. That's why when I went to Vipassana in 2002, I brought a cushion, a meditation cushion. But honestly, I don't see any point in people getting dogmatic with the way that you sit. You should be able to sit just as I'm sitting in a chair. And if you want to know more about grounding meditation, check out some of my past videos on it. Racially segregated gangs should be discouraged in prison. People involved in rape should be severely punished. We need to talk about what does punishment need to be for rapists and criminals. Education should be encouraged, and not just college education. Okay, there should be books upon books upon books in prisons that teach these prisoners about world history, about the beauty of different cultures. The lack of books in modern prisons should be considered a sin. Corrupt, drug-dealing jail guards should be held accountable for their actions. If they're going to put surveillance cameras in prisons and jails, you might as well activate those cameras. When I was in jail in 2000 and I was attacked when I was cleaning, because they often make people slaves in jail. Oh, you're going to make $1 a day. Oh, you're a trustman, or whatever they call them. So I was at Inverness in Portland, Oregon. Again, because I put a poison in my body, now legal in Portland, Oregon, you could do meth and heroin. But when I was 20, no, we're going to take you away and put you into our little camps called a jail. I blocked every one of the strikes without striking back, knowing that if I struck back, it would be considered a fight. So they put me in the hole. And in that time in the hole, I remember hearing somebody go, "I want to go home." Then I heard another voice, "You are home." I just thought that was the funniest stuff, man. I actually wrote a short story about an Indian warrior who summoned his white horse, spirit animal. So I got really shamanic when I was in the hole. And I told the guy that interviewed me about what happened. And I was out of that hole pretty quickly. However, for a lot of people that end up in these jails and prisons, you're not going to get away in a lot of cases with just being able to do some circular motion and block every strike. In some cases, you have to strike back. And you have to knock out every one that your fist touches. So maybe one day, if I get the blessings from the A-Man in Portland, Oregon, he will allow me to share some of his stories based on his experiences when he was sent to the joint in the state of Oregon in the year 1986, 1987. Imagine yourself being a Japanese man, the only man of Japanese heritage, in a Oregon prison, and having to fight off gangbangers and thugs, and then getting punished for it, and being deliberately starved by the jail guards so that your muscle mass that you developed for years and years vanishes, because if you don't eat, your body will cannibalize itself. And so he told me a story about how he had a book that was featuring the best of Chinese cooking. And as he sat in the hole, he read that book, and his mouth salivated, and he was hungry. And he told himself, when I get out, I'm going to buy that book, and I'm going to make all the dishes that are in that book. And he did. And he also was able to overcome that stigma from the jacket, i.e. the record that he had. And he went on to bounce at nightclubs, to work security at concerts, to evolve beyond his former underworld self and work in the world of middle management at several prominent hotels in the Portland, Oregon area. And unfortunately for him, the high stress from those jobs did adversely impact his health. So I pray for his health. And I hope that he will one day teach me more about what he knows about the dark side of Portland, Oregon's past. Okay. So I'm going to expand on these things. Criminal justice. This ties in with parolee requirements. So if I was in charge, which I'm not, but let's just play with the idea. You want to reward people for true good behavior. And so there should be ways in which people can reintegrate back into society, not be forced to work at some place to where they commonly hire felons and parolees. They're going to say that if you don't let me abuse you, I'm going to tell your parole officer, and you're going to go back to the joint. And if you've seen the movie Maximum Overdrive with Emilio Estevez, he plays a character that gets out of the joint, and he has a boss who basically says, hey, you're going to let me be your daddy, your master, or you're going back to the joint. You also see this depicted in the movie, the 1995 movie with Al Pacino and De Niro and Val Kilmer, Heat, in which they later recruit a black member to their bank robbery scheme. And the reason that he ends up returning to his criminal ways, they all met in the joint years earlier, is because he had a boss at a restaurant where he's a line cook, and he's basically saying, well, we're going to look at him. Here's your apron, lockers in the back. If you're late, you get a ride up. If you're late again, you get fired. And if you get fired, you go back to the joint. And he's not even looking at this black man like he's a human being. He's treating him like an animal. So the modern criminal justice system is so broken and encourages people going back out and getting back into their old ways. So a lot of these judges out there are super corrupt. And there's a lot of ways in which the warrant system is abused, where innocent people that have done nothing to no one are charged for things that they are not guilty of, where there's no evidence, no video footage of them doing anything, and people willing to bear false witness against someone are given carte blanche. And sometimes it's the bias from an officer. Oh, you look Saudi, you look Middle Eastern. I'm just going to believe what this person said about you and put you into the system so that your life might be destroyed. So vigilantes might later actually attack you thinking that you really are a criminal. So Satanism is alive and well. We need to reform. We're moving along here. We need to reform modern policing so that good men that want to protect women from kidnapping, from rape, from domestic violence are given a chance. That includes men without a gun. Using martial arts The martial arts should not be demonized. People should not confuse the martial arts with the MMA. Not to demonize every man that trains in the MMA, which you see often in the UFC, because it's a mix of martial arts. But the problem with MMA is that the personal discipline and the spirituality and the chi development is gutted out. So if you don't develop your chi, and if you're just training to feed into your own carnal desires, also called carnal knowledge is not just about sex and porn, it's also about the bloodlust, the blood fight. Not to demonize the movie Bloodsport, but it's said that Frank Dukes totally made up that movie and got in bed, so to speak, with Jean-Claude Van Damme, who's no angel, although he made some decent movies, a lot of crap movies too. The movie is based on a farce, but things like that do exist. And as the A-Man told me in Old Portland, there were a number of underground pit fighting, shoot fighting, which is an old term, fight clubs in the 1970s and 1980s and 1990s in Portland, Oregon, right? Truth be told. So there's all types of micro kumites that have existed in America. But like I said, if you're not developing yourself spiritually and you're going to roll on the ground practicing sexual assault moves in a jiu-jitsu studio, not to demonize jiu-jitsu, but a lot of these holds and moves and obsession with rolling around with sweaty men on the ground reminds me of and looks to me like something else, which is also why, even though I did high school wrestling as a freshman, this whole, get like here in this position and hold your partner right here. It's like, bro, that's looking too much, a little too homoerotic for my taste. I'd rather practice some Aikido, some boxing, some Kempo karate, something of that manner, rather than this Humpty Dump stuff. But you can benefit in the martial arts from learning how to ground fight, because a lot of fights do end up going to the ground. It's just my philosophy that we should attempt to stay on our feet and be a stand-up fighter rather than to take the advice of the Gracie family and spend 20 minutes on the ground. Yeah, try that in the streets. Try that in the hood. Back to Eli Ritchie, he was taken down to the ground. And although we couldn't see from that live stream what happened, he was fighting for his life basically for several minutes. And that is a very terrifying situation. You can be a very athletic, talented, mixed race human being like Eli Ritchie, half black, half white, who actually was able to take on an Antifa crowd, from what I can tell from one video he posted in the past, but still be taken to the ground by a maniac possessed by the devil. And that's not a good situation when you're on the ground tangling with somebody who's all pumped up on methamphetamines and bath salts, because whether it be on the streets or whether it be in a MMA studio or a UFC cage match or a UFC spinoff fight club at the Roseland on 6th and Burnside, when you're engaging physically with people like that, you can absorb their demons, or their demons can literally jump into your body. So through fighting, through wrestling, and through hardcore sex, and through consuming pornography and going to strip clubs and doing certain drugs and more, you can take on certain entities or demons, even if you think that you're pure. Okay, moving on. All this stuff and more needs to go in a book. So we've covered the criminal justice system, crossed that off our list, policing. We talked about self-defense. Women should know how to defend themselves. We need to reform, basically, is what I'm getting at, the way people think about self-defense and modern martial arts. When I was a young boy and I was visiting my dad when he was the weekend dad at that great apartment complex that he had over at 22nd and Southeast Clinton, I found a VHS tape called Self-Defense for Everybody. And James Liu, he was in the movie Big Trouble in Little China, and a few others. Here I am at the age of 12 and 13 without an actual martial arts teacher, except for the A-Man, teaching me how to do some waist twists and punch with power and strength. Other than him, who only taught me so much, no offense, but only taught me so much, I learned a lot from that videotape. Like one particular technique where if someone's coming at you with hooks, you want to deflect those hooks. Deflect those hooks. You see what I'm saying here? See how I'm moving here? I'm going to do this for you in the near future. I'm going to do this for you in the near future at the park. Deflecting those hooks and then coming back with an elbow a backhand, an elbow, a backhand, and an elbow again, looking something like this. Okay. Twisting that waist, twisting those hips, and striking, bam, 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 and again, and again, and again. And again, deflecting, deflecting, deflecting. Circular motion this way, follow, one direction. There's this way, then there's this way. More on that later. So people need to reform their understanding of self-defense beyond the kata, fixed karate forms, and beyond the MMA style of jiu-jitsu ground fighting, which is super, super popular. But learning ground fighting is really not something that you want to do. Enough on that. If you haven't seen my previous video, how to defend yourself without killing a man, why it's important to know how to fight with your hands if you're a Christian or a man of God, so you can avoid the sin of murder. Because there's way too many people in this society that think that because they have a right to the Second Amendment, that they have a right under self-defense to shoot someone. And so there's plenty of people out there that are charged with assault, would just simply try to resist someone taking their camera. Meanwhile, I can show you massive amounts of footage of Antifa and the far right fighting with fists, not just wrestling, but fighting with fists and mace. The cops do nothing. And many, many videos I can show you also on the internet where a man literally pulls out a gun and blows a dude away because he got pushed. And he also gets off with self-defense. So the whole legal system is corrupt against men of God and allows satanic men to get away with murder. Okay. There's a lot here. There's a lot here. We covered a lot. We've covered a lot, and we're bringing this to our conclusion. Okay. So we're going to conclude discussing public education and higher education. I know more about public education than higher education. Higher education should be affordable. I don't know if it should be free. I think that it should be affordable. And a lot of people out there have had to work very hard to escape poverty. And so there's a number of minorities in the system of white supremacy. But it's also a system that allows a lot of white people to suffer. While again, they may give preferential treatment to other people of color under the guise of diversity, while letting good white people suffer in the streets. People like Jim, my friend in Portland, and others, some of you also. But like I said, a lot of people receive higher education and they end up dumb as rocks, getting involved in Biden worship or voting for Biden, or getting involved in Trump worship and believing in QAnon nonsense, when you would think that their master's degree would have taught them to think critically. So they end up being automatons, like the public educational school system convinces them to be. And we're going to talk more about that in a minute. So higher education should be teaching people more about world cultures, the truth about certain religions. If they're going to be forced to take certain math, that math should be math that they're actually going to use. Not just conditioning people, oh, to get this degree, you have to take Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and if you want this degree, you have to take geometry and calculus. That is mind control. What in God's name are you going to do with calculus? What, build a you-know-what that goes boom? Seriously, what is the need for geometry and calculus in today's modern day and age? And so there's a mind control thing that's going on with a lot of people in higher education to make them mind slaves, to basically waste their youth and waste their brain power and waste their ability and waste their intelligence, and really it's co-opting their spirit. So instead of them spending time developing their spirituality, instead of spending time meditating and being in the heart, they're being conditioned to be in the mind. And in many cases, because they have an education and somebody does not, they may, like my father and others, they may look down on those that don't have an education, when even though they're immigrants and they might want to play that card, I'm an immigrant, I'm just a poor little Afghani immigrant, which my dad liked to play that card in the 70s. They may not admit that in their pre-9/11 world era, in which he lived in, they benefited so much from the compassion of white Americans that opened up their arms and hearts to these immigrants, unlike people like his American-born son. So they may not acknowledge how when they went to PSU in the 1970s, in the 1980s, tuition was far, far cheaper They can literally have a janitor job, as he did, at a place called Elephant Castle in downtown Portland, and the 24-hour, if it's still there, restaurant on the east side of the Ross Island Bridge. I'm not sure what it's called because I've forgotten, but it's right there around like 6th or 7th, right there on the east side of the Ross Island Bridge. And you can go there at 3 o'clock in the morning and have a burger and fry after you've been out on the town drinking like mad. And my father worked there in the late 70s, busted his ass, and went to school. Because at that time, you could be an immigrant in America and make enough to not only pay for your rent, but go to school. Fast forward to where we are now, that's no longer possible. And then Biden dangles. What they do is they dangle the possibility of, so you dream about it. I can dream about you if I can't have you tonight. Whoa, whoa. We'll be doing way more karaoke. I want to thank you for your requests. So they get to dream, many black people get to dream about reparations. But are they really going to give them reparations? I got mixed views on that. I think that if you give people in California millions of dollars, and black people in Texas, black people in New York, black people suffering in Oregon, they don't get money themselves. You can have people like running to California to add to the homelessness population, and you can have resentment in those other states. Like, why are you giving them money? And then you got articles saying, is it time to start robbing white people? Dun, 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 dun. YahooNews.com, corporate media, not Muslim controlled, not black owned, not Latino owned, not Chinese owned, but the CCP might be manipulating some of that. No. European owned media saying, is it time to rob white people, right? Mind control. So the current healing that needs to be done between the descendants of the slave masters and African Americans needs to be done slightly differently than the way in which they're going about it. So they'll dangle that, like Joe Biden would dangle, maybe I'll get rid of student debt. Oh, I'm your daddy now. I'm so against Trump. I'm your daddy. I'm so against white supremacy. Oh, the Afghans love the Taliban back in power. I'm so against white supremacy. The Afghans love the Taliban back in power. I'm so against white supremacy. No, Joe Biden, you are an example of what you say you are against. And all those people voted for Joe Biden. It's like, look at Joe Biden touch the kitties. I edited a 2-hour video down to 20 minutes showing you the worst. They're like, what? There's nothing wrong with that. You're weird, Alex Ansary, for calling out Joe Biden for touching on the kitties. Oh, am I really? And by the way, if you look that up on YouTube now, isn't it interesting? You barely see the really juicy, detailed videos exposing Joe Biden touching the young teenage woman in the red dress, Hispanic, or preteens. And you see like preteens literally leaning away from Joe Biden as he tries to lick their earlobe, right? And then David Pakman, although David Pakman puts out a lot of great content, because he's in the control left structure, who also gets to go on Patrick Bet-Davies' Valuetainment. He will literally put out a video saying, I see nothing wrong with this, which disappoints me greatly. So there needs to be reform of the cost of education, but the way in which it's being done now is not authentic. Joe Biden, in my opinion, is just effing with people. He doesn't really care. There should be ways in which people can educate themselves without it necessarily being totally for free. But if it's going to be free, there should be some sort of a credit system where they can work it off or earn their way into higher education. More on that later. I'm adding another one right now, okay? Welfare reform. We'll end with that, okay? So now public school. This is what I want to focus on right now. In the current public educational school system, so we're talking elementary, middle, but I'm primarily focused on high school, and I'm basing this on my own experiences and the God-given intellect that I have that seems way more activated than it was in the past. We know what they teach you, right? Learn this math, learn this, learn that, go to PE, get naked with the other men and women, although not necessarily with the women, although wouldn't that be awesome, but never mind. Get all naked, get all sweaty, forced to take a shower, put your dirty ass trunks in. No, no, no. Okay, in modern day school, they should learn the truth about certain cultures. Since they're so obsessed with bombing Afghanistan back to the Stone Age, they should teach real Afghan history so they know how Afghanistan fell. They should know about various regions. They should know their own history. They should know the truth about the founding fathers. They should know about Freemasonry. Okay, they shouldn't be taught Freemasonry. But some say there's a light side to that. That's another discussion for another time. Maybe they do demonize all Freemasons when it's really dark Luciferians that are part of the 0.00 whatever 1% of Freemasonry. There's plenty of Freemasons that are not actual Luciferians. They're just trying to get rich quick by being in a mystical gang of sorts. Whatever. I got ancestors that were in the Order of the Eastern Star, which is the female Freemasonry group. The point is that true history of our nation and our planet should be taught. Moving on, nutritious food and how to prepare food should be taught. They need to know real life skills. They should be taught about life in prison. They should be given real-time statistics about the amount of people that end up in sex slavery, the adult industry, and now pornography. They should be warned about social media addiction, internet addiction. They should be warned about the statistics of the amount of people, based on race included, that go to prison. They should be taught about racial discrimination. They should be taught about the nightmare of certain drugs, not taught, hey, this is heroin, and this is how you cook happy heroin, and this is what heroin does to you. Oh, and by the way, here's how to masturbate, here's how to watch porn, here's how to have group sex. And see, when you have people that are becoming sexualized in the modern school system, and that anybody with a cell phone can immediately bring up a porn site, and certain ethnic men, without pointing the blame at any group, whether they be white or ethnic, they might want to point their, in a sick mind, their cell phone to a girl and be like, this is what's going to happen to you. Or maybe you want to do some of this. And so they can be influenced and taunted by adult video content that is being broadcast into high schools. And I'm telling you, if the government want to shut that down and stop deepfake porn and do other things to protect women, it could. But yet it wants to focus on keeping marijuana illegal at the federal level. Doing studies on how MDMA can cure PTSD, but keeping that illegal at the federal level. And pushing drugs, antipsychotics, antidepressants that end lives. When in reality, cannabis saves lives. And ain't that the truth? Can I get an amen? There's also value in being abstinent, because cannabis is not free. Unless, of course, you're living off the grid where they've legalized it, where you can have up to 6 plants in places like Colorado, or is it 12 plants now? You got to bring in that water. And so in those cases, cannabis is free. The current public educational school system serves bad food, promotes in the cafeterias, Taco Bell, Pizza Hut, McDonald's, and you haven't seen me megaphoning McDonald's in 2009, you want to 2007, with a former girlfriend who later got into worshiping the soldiers that invaded Afghanistan, sucking on the you-know-what of the MAGA movement and getting into QAnon psychosis. It's amazing how she and many other people were totally awake during the 2000s, and then their consciousness went after 2012. Maybe our world did end and they just didn't tell us. In some cases, it's actually better for somebody to quit school and become a tradesman, to learn a trade. So, moving on, parents, reform of parenting. Reform of parenting. This is one of my most powerful videos. You cannot put me in a box of conspiracy theory. And basically, frankly, when people do that to people like me and others that are people of color, you might as well spit in somebody's face who's of African-American heritage and call him the N-word. Not only is that inappropriate, it's totally inappropriate for many people on the left to see me as a conspiracy theorist and many people on the right to see me as a snowflake for not drinking their Trump jungle juice. Do you see? Parents should be teaching their children their ancestry and the beautiful aspects of their culture. They should be teaching them as soon as they can walk and function, how to work on cars, how to build. And I'm thinking build with hammer and nails, not just slave. Here, grandson, I'm your grandpa Morris Nagel. Here, paint this building. But I'm not your real dad, so I'm not going to teach you how to build like I taught my son Bruce, like I taught my son Phil. So, that gnosis, that knowledge of Grandpa, founder of Nagel Floor Covering, which still stands to this day in Aurora, Oregon, he did not really teach me how to do jack squat. He did not take me hunting. He did not do a lot of things. And I don't want to speak ill of my parents, but I'm going to bring up certain things in a calm way. It was wrong, really, for my mom and Bruce to act like I was privileged, like I was born into privilege. Grandpa didn't do this for us. Grandpa didn't do this. Grandpa did a lot for you even after he was dead when you inherited his money. How dare you tell me, who was left in poverty and the streets, that I was born into privilege? But perhaps my grandmother and my grandfather could have done a little bit more to help my mother in some ways than they did. But because I didn't grow up with a conscious father who put me in front of the TV when I visited him when he was the weekend dad, and I ate pizza, drank Coca-Cola, the knockoff sodas, and I watched Arnold Schwarzenegger and Stallone on TV and HBO and Cinemax and Showtime during, of course, the 80s when the movies were much better. Nuke 'em high. Also finding my father's disgusting adult content at the time. Yeah, the 80s are pretty wild, folks. That was some cocaine. Push it to the limit, the limit! My father taught me nothing. My grandfather taught me how to do some chores. How to maybe put bait on a fishing line, and took me fishing a few times. One time I caught like 10 fish. He caught one. He's like, what the hell? How does that even happen? So yes, I have some positive memories of my grandpa, and only my grandpa, taking me out to nature. Whereas the trips with my mother, with her former boyfriend, were horrible. Along with the trips into nature with my father, in which he blew up in anger. And he was horrible as well. Not my grandpa. My grandpa was a hunter. My grandpa fought in World War II. He took part in the bombing of Japan. We're all going to have different opinions on that. My grandpa, Bill, owned a lot of property. Not a lot, not too much, but he owned property in Seaside, Oregon. So my mother, in the 80s, had opportunities to go to the beach and get away from the Willamette Valley, away from Aurora, Oregon. Now population maybe 1,200, 1,500, 600 for many years, 25 miles south of Portland. My grandfather owned property in Eastern Oregon, in a place called Boreman, Oregon, which is close to a place called Pendleton, Oregon. My grandfather went to Mexico on a regular basis every few years with my grandmother. There's a picture that I have of both of them. It looks like they're related to the Bush family. They're not in that bloodline. But like I said, you have the NAGL Austrian line, not to be confused with the NAGLE Jewish bloodline, Nagel. And then, of course, you have the Lewis bloodline of my grandmother, Ruth, which is connected in with Welch and may even be something that descends from old kings, former kings in Europe, from what I gather. Nowadays, white Americans got to watch their back going into Mexico, or they might get kidnapped. I've been advised to not go to Mexico because I could be targeted. Whereas there's a lot of wealthy Europeans and white Americans that are now living in Mexico without any major problems from the locals. So more power to them. But people have told me, do not go to Mexico. 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 So I've got a long way to go, such a long way to make it to the border of Mexico. When I used to hear that song, Ride Like the Wind, in 1982, when it was playing on MTV or the TV, when I was living with my mother, my single mother, in some apartment in downtown Seattle, I would think about my missing father. And think about my father. Running to the border of Mexico. No, no, no. Ride like the wind. Some of my brain at the time thought it was my dad singing. My missing dad singing to me through the TV. He had an opportunity to teach me, to educate me. When those times that I visited my dad, and when I had to live with him from 1995 until 1998, and he chose to drink abusively. Didn't teach me how to make Afghan kebabs or naan, spelled Naan, which is the flatbread made in India and the Middle East. And so bringing it back to this, I consider it a sin if you bring children into this world and you don't teach them how to defend themselves, how to defend their ancestry, how to eat, how to cook, how to treat good men, how to treat good women, how to treat men, how to treat women, how to respect yourself, how to respect others, how to come to know God, how to build with your hands. When children come into this world and they show a natural disposition towards certain talents, those talents should be nurtured. I wanted to know how to play electric guitar, and my parents did not help me buy an electric guitar. But when it came to saxophone, like Lisa Simpson in The Simpsons, oh, that's kosher, that's okay. And just because there's heavy metal bands that were labeled satanic in the 80s, that's no excuse for not encouraging your son who wants to play electric guitar, to encourage them to not. When a child is young and they show a natural disposition and they're ready to learn the chords, because that's in my ancestry. You ever heard of the sitar? Then there's drums, hand drums. But instead of me learning these natural acoustic instruments, I ended up trying to mess with the saxophone, which I quit. And then I ended up at the age of 16 in band class. But I didn't go to band camp for any band camp experiences. But it's like, now we're going to learn the snare drum. Three blind mice, dun 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 dun, three blind mice. Like, what is that, bro? What is that? No, drumming is this. Tribal, as opposed to tribalism. But tribal drums, tribal acoustic instruments, tribal foods, that's where it's at. A lot of the modern day musical instruments are not the way. And really, as opposed to worshiping the 528 hertz coming from YouTube, try a Tibetan singing bowl. Boom. Instead of worshiping the 532, instead of playing videos off of YouTube, practice oming, meditation, and get yourself a Tibetan singing bowl. I don't have one at present. They aren't cheap, but I'm going to get one later. Okay. So we talked about reforming parenting. I know this is a long video, but you got the Alex Jones show, 3 hours a day, 4 hours a day, and people tune into that. You have the Jeff Rich show. You have Clyde Lewis on the air. If people are willing to listen to these major talk show hosts, including Coast to Coast, there's no reason why I shouldn't be speaking for 1 hour a day, 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day. And it's about quality, not quantity. I'm okay right now, folks, with the fact that very few of you are donating. There's maybe 2 to 3 to 4. I appreciate it, even if it's $15, even if it's $20. But I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm going to tell you where we're at. We're at maybe 100 a month right now. And what we want to do is we want to increase that to at least 300 to 400 to 500 a month in the coming 6 months. 1 year from now, I'd like to see $1,000. Okay, we'll see if we can get there, but I'm highly, highly skeptical that that is going to happen with the current level of shadow banning that I'm experiencing. Like I said, we're not seeing the growth on Substack. We have, 112, 113, 14 subscribers on YouTube, and we have people unsubscribing from the Substack. That's no bueno. That, my friends, has got to change. So we will conclude with reforming the current welfare system. We have a current welfare system, who knows why it's that way, we can speculate, that seems to be doling out cash to a lot of people out there that are doing nothing to evolve themselves and help out society. Meanwhile, we have plenty of people that are not receiving welfare in the society that are doing everything to expose the New World Order, corruption. Let's replace New World Order, folks, which is so co-opted and flagged by YouTube, with global corruption or other terminology. Let me know what terminology you would recommend other than global corruption, one world government, or New World Order. You even say New World Order in the description. Wikipedia will pop up to say that it's a conspiracy theory, even if you can find news articles about Russia and China saying that they're going to lead the New World Order, showing that it's not just a conspiracy theory. But we still need to learn new coded language so that we can get around the algorithm. And that's one of the reasons why sometimes we're not allowed to comment and have our comments seen. So it'll show that someone commented, but you can't actually see the actual comment. This is what I think. Whether it be with helping the homeless, housing, education, certain forms of assistance. Because frankly, folks, if you don't know that the veterans of World War II got a lot of assistance, unlike a lot of Black Americans, unless maybe they served in the military. But while a lot of Black Americans were oppressed and living in places like Vanport in Portland, Oregon before it flooded, and then they were forced into North and Northeast Portland to found the Black communities, now replaced by, take no offense to this, but now gentrified, with mostly white people there, with many of the Blacks being forced to live out in Gresham and the East Side. And so men like my grandfather and many of your grandparents, because they fought in World War II, they benefited from certain bills and acts that were passed. We also saw the population boom in the 1950s. We also saw the boom in appliances being sold, General Electric commercials. Buy this, buy that, make yourself some muffins, eat of the GMO, eat of the mass agra, although it may have been pre-GMO, but it wasn't exactly organic, as they sprayed that, what was it called, DDT on the salad, things of that nature. So we talk about welfare. A lot of people that serve the military, serve the system, in a way, they have been on a form of welfare. Whether we're talking about the World War II vets or the vets of Iraq and Afghanistan, there's also a lot of vets that have been left homeless. If someone is trying to do good in this world, there should be a way that they can be helped either financially or through their community. When it comes to Portland, Oregon, if you're homeless and you're on drugs and you're not from Portland and you qualify and you fill out certain bits of paperwork, you can end up with permanent housing. Whereas if you're trying to do good and you're on Access TV as a homeless person, as I was, and you're ethnic, and you're trying to wake people up, there's no program in Portland to say, okay, let's help the people that were born here first. Kind of like the idea of helping Americans first before bringing the whole third world into America, into places in America where they're not even really wanted. Not that I'm anti-immigrant. I'm saying that I'm looking at this from outside the left and the right box and trying to help you see what I see. So when it comes to Portland, Oregon, the homelessness industrial complex, where they line their own pockets from the deals that they make from the corporations that get the money from the government and the whole way it's structured. I'm not an expert on it, but if you want to send me an email and let me know the basics in a few paragraphs, sum it up, give me the cliff notes. Thank you. So in Portland, my old friend called it the poverty pimps. Basically, they're pimping the homeless people. They're using the homeless to make money themselves. A lot of refugee services are also doing this. Sad but true. So in my opinion, if someone's born in America or born in a certain city, like I was born in Portland, Oregon, and they're exiled to go live outside the country or go live outside of Portland, Oregon, there should be a, quote, return to Portland, Oregon plan. And by the way, if you want to take small clips of my videos, if you ask permission and you're free of partisan politics, I would actually appreciate you taking small clips of what I'm saying and putting them on channels. And so, you know, a lot of people are not going to watch me for 2 hours, and I am not, I repeat, I am not going to take the time to splice together small little clips of me saying these segments because I'll only have 5 or 10 views, no matter how hard I try. I already did that in the past. The algorithm does not like me. But some of you that are not cyborgs do like me. And so for those of you that like to sit around editing video all day, these individual points that I'm making should be, in theory, put on a playlist titled based on topic. And in some cases, you can even leave my name out of it and see if, hell, in some cases, maybe take my name out of it, take my face out of it, use my voice, and see if that can bypass the algorithm. Or maybe even take out my voice, take out my face, take out my name, take out references to my heritage, take out some of the gnosis that I'm sharing that's too hot to handle, and just focus on the meat and potatoes of me talking about what's missing in our systems, and then just copy and paste that transcript. You can use the YouTube transcript option to literally extract out the data. Just take your little surgical tool and go, we're gonna extract that phrase here. Boop, 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 boop. As you operate the crane of consciousness, bypassing AI, we're gonna extract Alex's gnosis, take out his face, take out his words, and take his raw data. Dude, incoming, doing surgery, got the mask on. Okay, doing heart surgery, trying to rehabilitate this broken system before the system kills us all. People on welfare should not be encouraged to just abuse themselves with drugs and alcohol and pharmaceuticals. They should be encouraged. Forced is a big word, but they should be strongly encouraged to make the world a better place. And so people that are involved in alternative media, right, they need to be able to have options for how they can make the world a better place through their independent journalism. And as I said before, and it's really time to wrap things up, and it's time for me to eat breakfast, get some exercise, get some sunshine, and maybe go get some seaweed from the store, get some carrot juice from the store. Most of my money that I spend, just so you know, goes towards nutritious food. None of it goes to drugs and alcohol. Although I will say that I did down a 6-pack for the first time in 3 years on Halloween, right? But when in Rome, then I dropped my 6th beer, and I thought like the gin took it or something, you know? Oh my God, the aliens took my beer, just like I can't find my EMF hat. That's been missing for 2 days now, and I can't figure out why, right? But hopefully it'll show up. People that are receiving free money from the government should be encouraged to make the world a better place, because there's plenty of people out there that are not receiving money from the government, that do not have health insurance, that do not have permanent housing, that are working 24/7 to make the world a better place, and they have nothing and no retirement coming to them. And so the welfare system as it is right now, and I only know a little bit about it, I don't know everything. Some of you may know a lot more about it. It needs to be reformed as well. All these thoughts and more, I'd like to see go into a book. Like I said, I'm trying to build up the personal discipline to not upload countless amounts of videos per day, and to work more towards authoring a book, bypassing the AI algorithm, bypassing social media, apathy, and getting my gnosis and words into physical books, so that the next generation will benefit from the many things that I've come to understand, identify, and speak of.